So let's create the foam particles. So again, if we check them out over here, that's the particles that we're creating. And for that, we'll create this foam particles class. And let's just start by importing flash events.event, because we'll be using an enter frame event to animate the whole thing. Then import flash.display.movieClip. Here we go. And we need this class to extend movie clip. Particle extends movie clip. Here we go. Okay, taking this one up here. And first of all, we'll need to define two variables out here. And first of all will be follower, which will just allow over here to be a variable that will be accessible throughout the document, but we'll pass it in actually into the document as an object that our particles should follow, right? So var particle array equals new array. Here we go. And going down here, let's create that follower movie clip. So we're accepting an object over here which our particles should constantly follow. And now let's make it accessible throughout the document. So follower equals follower. Here we go. And create particles. Like that. And a private function create particles, which will create an enter frame event inside of, so add event listener event enter frame on particle frame 0 true, make it a weak reference. And now let's create that frame, which will actually be creating our particles, each frame a new particle, and we'll also destroy the particle when its alpha reaches 0. So we can do private function again, and this time on particle frame void, and we need to pass in the event var particle, and now the data type. Let's check it out over here. So we have a foam particle over here, right? It's a PNG white particle that's slightly blurred. So we don't have to actually create a shape over here and blur it, because that would take more resources at runtime. So we'll use a bitmap foam equals new foam, like that. And let's do that now. Particle, we don't need this actually. Particle dot x equals follower dot width divided by 2 plus, and I will just make it, appear either slightly to the left, slightly to the right, or in the center, or somewhere in between those areas of our boat. So let's add some math random times 10 minus 5, which will actually create us a value from minus 5 to 5, right? And that's plus follower.x if we wanted to actually follow the object that we're passing in. And then particle.y equals follower.y. And let's add plus 20 over here. And we're missing an underscore. So all this is actually so the particle will follow the object in question, and this time it's our boat. Now let's call the move particle function, which we'll be creating in a second, and pass the particle to it. Particle.alpha equals 0.3, so we want it to be quite transparent, and add child particle. Now let's create the move particle function. So this will be function move particle, and we're accepting the object, which is a movie clip. And what we're doing over here is we're adding another event listener for enter frame, which will animate our particle. And we'll create a variable over here, which is direction x, which will slightly curve the path of the particle. So they won't just move to the back in a straight line, so it will create this slightly wake-like curve on the particle. And that's var direction x number equals math random times minus 0.5. So this is from minus 0.5 to 0.5. And now the function move frame evt event void, and we'll actually be animating our object in here. So object.y plus equals 2.5. This is the speed on the y-axis, so how fast it will move down. Now we have object.x plus equals direction x, and we'll take away its alpha, so we'll fade it out very slowly, or at least the numbers suggest that. So 0.005, which will still happen quite fast, and direction x equals direction x divided by 0.01, which will kind of take direction x and reduce it slightly towards 1. Okay, so here we go. Now all we need to do now is create an if statement which will remove all of this if our particle gets to alpha. So if we have our if object dot alpha is less or equals 0, then we want to remove event listener, event enter frame, move frame, and remove child object. And we can also make it a weak reference up here, so false, 0, true. Okay, let's check it out. So what we're doing is we're accepting an object that our particles should follow. Then we're creating an enter frame event which creates our particles. Each frame a new particle is created. And then we have another function which moves our particles in this wake-like fashion with the use of this direction x, which is kind of panning our particles or moving our particles in the x either to slightly to the left or slightly to the right. So it's not a completely straight line down from the boat. So let's go over here and let's try and just add that to the stage. And let's go into our boat. We will actually add all of that stuff. So let's say var foam particles equals new foam particles, and we need to pass it our boat, which we have down here, and we have a instance named boat. That's why we're passing boat, and add child foam particles. Let's see. Okay, we have an error. check it out. So axis of yeah. So we started without the underscore and then we went on with it, so that's one problem. Otherwise it works. Cool. What we need to fix though is we need to add child at, so we're adding it kind of behind the actual boat, right? Because at the moment, as we saw, the particles were actually forming above the boat, so now it's as it should be. And you can see the particles actually kind of flowing down here. We just can't move the boat just yet. Okay, so let's check out the class again quickly if there's something left unexplained. We pass the object. This is the place where we actually define where our particles should be formed, and then we move it from that point on. And after all the motion, we remove it when its alpha is equal or less than 0. Okay, so now let's go and build. Since we have kind of the effects done, we have our PerlinNoise creating this water effect, and we have the particles creating the wake, the wake-like behavior. And now we'll go and create the behavior for our boat. So we'll actually map it to our keys and create the events that will drive our boat left, right, up, and down.